probably gonna have to do this week. It's Tuesday, maybe 5:03 p.m.
The end of a long day.
Exactly. You're tired, you just want to get home. But you need, say, 3 things from the supermarket. You walk in, head to aisle 4 for a loaf of bread. You grab a rotisserie chicken for dinner, a carton of milk. You walk to the checkout, tap your card beep, and you're out.
The whole thing takes, what, 6 minutes?
If you're lucky, but here's the thing. It looks so simple, effortless even. You tap a piece of plastic and you leave with dinner. But I want to just, pause that scene and look at the absolute chaos that is happening behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Because for that specific loaf of bread to be on that specific shelf at 5:30 p.m., 1,000 things had to go right.
It really is the magic trick of modern retail, isn't it? We see the show, but we don't see any of the machinery.
We don't. And that is what we are digging into today. We are looking at this invisible nervous system that keeps retail businesses from just collapsing under their own weight. We're analyzing a company called Arch Retail Solutions. We've got their technical documentation on the Arch Enterprise System, or AE, their strategy paper on the Arch Advantage, and a breakdown of their integrated management tools.
And honestly, looking through these documents, the mission here is bigger than just how a cash register works. We're analyzing a really fundamental philosophical shift.
A shift in how businesses are run.
Yeah, it's a debate between building a true ecosystem versus just, stitching things together.
Right. And to understand that, we have to start with the problem. I was reading through the source material, and I kept seeing these references to the Frankenstein approach.
Ah, yes.
Now, usually when we talk about Frankenstein in business, it's a metaphor for bad leadership or something. But here it seems purely technical.
It is technical, but the consequences are very, very real. The Frankenstein problem is it's the default state for most retailers as they grow. Think about how a business starts. You open one shop. You need a point-of-sale system to take money. You buy the cheapest one you can find. Let's call it vendor A. It works fine.
Okay, it's simple enough.
But then, 6 months later, you realize you are just drowning in paperwork. You need serious accounting software.
Yeah.
Well, vendor A doesn't do that, so you go to vendor B.
And then you need a loyalty program.
Right. To keep customers coming back.
Yeah.
Vendor B doesn't do that, so you hire vendor C. And suddenly...
You've got 3 different pieces of software running your business.
Exactly. And they were never designed to talk to each other. You've built a monster out of spare parts. The sources call this multi-vendor mess a strategic nightmare. And there's this specific phrase in the Arch Advantage paper that I love. It really describes the result. Finger-pointing sessions.
I saw that. It's such a visceral image, isn't it? It's the corporate equivalent of he did it.
It's exactly that. I mean, imagine you're the retailer. Your loyalty points aren't printing on the customer's slip. The customer's annoyed. You call the loyalty vendor.
And what do they say?
They say, hey, our software is sending the data perfectly. It's your point of sale system that's rejecting it.
So you call the point of sale guy?
And he says, no, my system is fine. It's the integration connector that's broken. And everyone blames everyone else. Meanwhile, you are paying support fees to 3 different companies, and nobody is actually fixing the problem.
And the customer is just standing there tapping their foot.
Precisely.
Ah.
And that friction is where profit dies. This is where Arch tries to flip the script with this concept of native integration.
Okay, native integration. It sounds a bit like a buzzword. Is it just marketing speak for we sell everything?
It's more than that. It's about the architecture. In a Frankenstein system, you're gluing things together with APIs and middleware.
Right.
Arch builds its modules. Retail, mobile, enterprise, e-store, replenished from the same DNA. They're born from the same code base.
So they aren't just roommates, they're basically siblings.
Correct. And this leads to a massive advantage that the docs mention, the single roadmap. In a mixed environment, if your point-of-sale vendor releases a cool new update, say version 5.0, you might be terrified to install it.
Because it might break the connection to the accounting software.
Exactly. You are held hostage by the slowest vendor in your stack. But because Arch owns the entire stack, the source material emphasizes that they perform full regression testing across the whole chain before they release anything.
Okay, unpack that for the listeners who aren't software developers. Regression testing.
It's the safety net. It means they test that fixing a bug in the, say, inventory module didn't accidentally break the loyalty module. They test the brakes, the engine, and the steering wheel all at once. So when you hit update, the car still drives.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about stability. But there's another phrase in the text that stood out to me. It sounds almost spiritual. One version of the truth.
Yeah, it does sound a bit like we're seeking enlightenment, doesn't it?
But in the context of data, I'm guessing truth usually equates to money, right?
It does. One version of the truth is the solution to duplication errors. In a non-integrated system, you might have an item listed as Coke can in your inventory system, but as Coca-Cola 330 milliliters in your sales system.
I can absolutely see that happening. Different people typing things in at different times.
Right. Now imagine you change the price in the sales system. Does it update the inventory value? Maybe. Maybe not. Now you have two different prices for the same object inside your own business.
That sounds like a recipe for a massive headache.
It's a recipe for bleeding cash. In Arch, because of that native integration, the item master, the pricing, the stock data, it all is in one shared model. If I am the head office manager and I change the price of that bread we talked about,
It changes everywhere.
instantly. It changes at the point of sale, it changes on the e-store for online shoppers, and it changes in the back office reporting. There's no lag, there's no translation layer where data can get liced.
Which I assume has a pretty big impact on what the docs call TCO, total cost of ownership.
Oh, massive. You aren't paying for middleware, that invisible software that just exists to make other software talk. You're not paying for third-party connectors. And, crucial point here, you have a single support team.
Right. No finger pointing. You call one number and they own the whole problem.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate for a second here. We've established that having a single brain is better than having 5 brains fighting each other. That makes sense. But isn't there a massive risk to centralization?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if everything is connected to one brain or one cloud, what happens when the internet dies? Because let's be real, internet connections are not 100% reliable.
This is the critical question. If the line goes down, does the shop just close?
I mean, I've been there. You're in line, you've got your frozen peas, and the cashier looks apologetic and says, "System is offline, we can't take cards."
And you leave. And you probably don't come back that day.
Exactly. So if Arch is this big centralized cloud brain, isn't that a huge vulnerability?
It would be if it were purely cloud-based. But the Hunters describe a hybrid cloud-local model. This is really, really important.
Oh, crap.
They have Arch Enterprise, or AE, running in the cloud. That's the head office brain. But the Arch retail system, the one in the store, runs as a local instance.
A local instance, so there's like a mini brain in the store itself.
Yes. A copy of all the relevant data sits on a server inside the physical store. And this is all enabled by their proprietary DX data exchange system.
The docs mentioned DX. How does that actually work in practice?
Think of it like a submarine. When the submarine is on the surface, it's radioing everything back to base constantly. We sold a milk, we sold a bread. That's the online mode.
Okay.
But if the connection is cut, if the sub has to dive, it doesn't just stop working.
The crew doesn't just sit there and wait.
Right. The engines still run. The navigation still works. In the store, if a construction crew cuts the fiber line outside, the tills keep ringing. You can still receive goods at the back door. The local instance handles all the heavy lifting.
So the store functions completely autonomously.
For all the critical stuff, yes. And then when the internet comes back on, the DX system automatically resurfaces. It says, "Okay, base, here is everything that happened while we were dark," and it updates the central cloud. This ensures high system availability.
That feels like the secret sauce, because I feel like a lot of modern, Silicon Valley style POS systems are purely cloud-based. If the internet jitters for a second, they just freeze.
Correct. Arch seems to understand the reality of retail infrastructure, which is that it's often messy and unreliable.
Yeah.
They give you the control of the cloud, but the resilience of having on-premise hardware.
Let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about the store floor. I want to zoom out to the head office. The source material spends a lot of time on Arch Enterprise, AE. They call it the multi-store management solution.
This is the command center. If you run one store, you can manage it by walking around looking at the shelves. If you run 50 stores, walking around is impossible. You need Arch Enterprise.
But the text notes a specific hurdle here. It says, one of the biggest challenges for decentralized retailers is changing to a centralized model. That sounds like a polite corporate way of saying managers hate giving up control.
It is exactly that.
Yeah.
Look, store managers are used to being kings of their own castle. They set the prices, they decide which local supplier to buy eggs from, they decide how much cheese goes on the pizza in the deli.
Right.
Moving to a centralized model where head office decides everything. That is a massive culture shock.
It sounds like a recipe for a mutiny. Some guy in a suit at HQ doesn't know my customers.
That's the common complaint. But Arch seems to handle this by allowing gradual centralization. You don't have to flip a switch and strip all power away on day one. You might centralize just the pricing first, then maybe the ordering later. You sort of ease the organization into it.
I want to get concrete here, though. Centralization is a vague word. What actually gets centralized? Give me the why it matters for a specific feature from the sources.
Okay, let's look at recipes. This is huge for supermarkets with a bakery, deli, or butchery.
Recipes, like for that rotisserie chicken I bought.
Exactly. In a decentralized world, the deli manager in store A might use a special spice blend that costs $2 extra per bird because he thinks it tastes better. The manager in store B uses the cheap stuff.
So the brand is inconsistent?
The brand is inconsistent, and the costs are totally invisible. Store A is losing margin, and Store B is hurting the brand. With Arch Enterprise, the recipe is centralized. Every store sees the same ingredient list.
So HQ sets the standard. A chicken gets 10 grams of spice, period.
And this is the cool part. The system deducts exactly that amount from stock when a chicken is produced. So you control the quality and the profit margin from one place.
That makes total sense. What about pricing? I saw the term margin zones. Is that just a fancy way of saying we charge rich people more?
Well, it's about market reality. You can't necessarily charge the same price for a bottle of water in a high-rent city center store as you do in a rural discount outlet.
Sure.
Or maybe you have a store near a competitor that is slashing prices, so you need to match them, but just in that one location.
So margin zones let head office group stores.
Right. Group A is upmarket, Group B is value, Group C is coastal. You manage the pricing by zone. You aren't setting prices for 50 individual stores one by one. That would take forever. You set the strategy for the zone, and the system propagates it out.
Efficient.
And it extends to logistics, too. Supplier zoning. You don't want a store in Cape Town ordering fresh milk from a supplier in Johannesburg.
The milk would be cheese by the time it arrived.
Exactly. The system knows which supplier services which specific store. It prevents logistical stupidity.
Preventing logistical stupidity, that should be on their brochure. Now, we have to talk about data. The text mentions data cubes. I'll be honest, data cubes sounds like something out of a Marvel movie.
It does sound a bit sci-fi.
What are we actually talking about here? Why is a cube better than a spreadsheet?
It's a concept of multidimensional data. Think about a normal spreadsheet. It's flat, you have rows and you have columns. You can see sales by day, or maybe sales by store, but it's hard to see everything at once. A data cube lets you pivot that data instantly in multiple dimensions. So you can ask a really complex question like, show me sales of Coca-Cola, specifically the 2-liter bottles, only in my coastal stores, and specifically only on weekends.
And you get that answer instantly.
Instantly. It allows you to slice and dice the data to find patterns. You might find that Store A sells huge amounts of soda on Fridays, but Store B doesn't. Why?
Maybe Store B has the soda hidden in the back.
Exactly. The cube highlights the anomaly. It turns raw data into questions, and questions lead to fixes.
Which brings us to the actual act of buying stock, procurement. The source mentions algo-driven purchase orders. This feels like where we move from just management to optimization.
This is where the machine really starts to outperform the human. The system uses algorithms to automate buying.
So the computer is placing the orders. The store manager isn't walking the aisles with a clipboard counting cans anymore.
For selected suppliers, yes. The system looks at the sales history, the current stock levels, the delivery lead times.
But how does it know I need more beans today?
It knows that, on average, you sell 20 cans a day. It knows it takes 3 days for the truck to arrive. And it knows you have 60 cans left. So it orders now so the truck arrives exactly when you're about to hit zero.
It's that just-in-time logic, but fully automated.
And think about the time saving. Instead of counting cans, that manager is now on the floor helping customers. The text links this to e-replenish, which automates the full procure-to-payment process. So it's not just ordering, it's managing the delivery status and the payment too.
So we have this massive, integrated, centralized machine. But as you always say, technology for technology's sake is just expensive nonsense. It has to drive business goals.
Correct. And the source material is very explicit about this. It states the system was developed to improve 2 key functions: stock turn and margin control.
Stock turn and margin, the absolute heartbeat of retail.
And the text makes a brilliant point here. These two are intertwined. You can't treat them separately.
Explain the relationship there. Why are they so tightly linked?
Well, stock turn suffers when you have overstocks. If you have money tied up in dusty boxes of obscure hot sauce in the back room that nobody buys, your business is dying slowly. That is dead cash.
Right. You can't pay rent with hot sauce.
Exactly. So you want high stock turn. But margin suffers on understocks.
Yep.
If a customer walks in wanting that specific bread and you don't have it, that is a lost sale. You have lost that margin forever.
So it's a high wire act. You need just enough stock to capture every sale, but not so much that it sits there gathering dust.
And that balance is impossible to maintain manually across 50 stores with 10,000 items each. A human just can't process that much data. That is why you need the algorithm.
And there's a third factor the docs mention, campaign management.
Promotions, markdowns, supplier claims. This complicates the math even more.
Right, because if I run a buy one, get one free deal, my margin drops, but my stock turn speeds up.
Exactly. And the system needs to track that perfectly.
Right.
If you don't track the supplier claim where the supplier pays you back for the discount, you just lose money. Arch handles these complex promotions so you can move stock without accidentally destroying your profit.
It's like landing a plane. You have to adjust the speed and the altitude at the same time. If you just dive, you crash.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And Arch Enterprise is the autopilot that keeps the plane steady.
Okay, before we wrap up, I want to do a quick fire round. We saw a section on latest news and innovations in the source material, which shows this system isn't static. It's, breathing.
Let's do it.
I'll throw a feature at you. You tell me why retailers should care. First up, XERO integration.
Seamless cloud accounting. The operational data from the store flows directly into the Xero accounting software. No manual data entry for the accountants. Saves time, and more importantly, it stops people from typing in the wrong numbers.
Okay, firewalls.
The source says, non-negotiable for retailers. Security is no longer optional. Retailers are a huge target for ransomware because they hold credit card data. Arch is hardening the perimeter.
Reduced to clear functionality.
Oh, critical for fresh food. When that chicken is about to expire, you need to discount it quickly to get it out the door. The system manages the labels and the price change so you minimize waste. It's sustainability and profit in one.
And finally, mobile and self-checkout.
Meeting the modern customer. Shoppers do not want to wait in line. They want to scan on their phone or use a kiosk. Arch is expanding the ecosystem to the customer's hands, not just the cashier's.
It really is a complete loop, from the supplier delivering the flour to the recipe in the system to the price on the shelf to the customer checking out, all the way to the accountant seeing the profit.
And because it's natively integrated, that loop is unbroken. That's the Arch advantage.
So let's bring it all home. We started with the invisible complexity of just buying a loaf of bread. We looked at the nightmare of these Frankenstein systems where vendors blame each other.
And data gets lost in translation. We saw the solution. A single ecosystem, one roadmap, one version of the truth.
We talked about the safety net, that hybrid cloud local model that keeps the store running even if the internet dies, using that submarine-style DX system.
And we dived into the brain Arch enterprise managing recipes, zones, and algo-driven ordering to balance the two things that matter most, stock turn and margin.
It's really impressive stuff. It takes the absolute chaos of retail and, well, puts it in a box.
It does. But I think the biggest takeaway is the why. Why go through all this trouble? Why invest in all this tech? It's about removing operational noise.
Operational noise.
If a retailer is spending 50% of their energy fighting their own systems, fixing data errors, reconciling spreadsheets, calling 3 different support lines, that is 50% of their energy not spent on the customer.
That's the key. The technology should be invisible so the service can be visible.
Exactly.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We talked a lot about ecosystems today.
We did.
So look at your own business or even just your own workflow. If your business systems are spending time talking to each other through translators and middleware, how much of your time is being lost in translation? Is your technology ecosystem actually an ecosystem? Or is it just a collection of potted plants that happen to be in the same room?
That is a question worth answering.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.